We're live. Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Thuya special open meeting of Town Council, September the 26th, 2022 at 2 p.m. in Council Chambers. And so we have people in the room, which I assume that you can see. Corporate officer, our CAO, and our Director of Operational Services. And we also have Councillor Harvey and Councillor Rhodes online, and there's somebody else on there that I don't know. I'm sorry. Oh, is it Tim's from?
So Tim is our communications person in regards to our.
Tim, who I met before, and I'm sorry, Tim, I didn't realize it was you. Sure, I met. Okay.
No problem.
Thank you. And we also have Mike Lang, our water expert, and is that okay with you that we're here, the water expert? And we've got Steve Underwood, who is with True Engineering, and we also have Judy Eckert, who is, let me get this right, the environmental health officer with Interior Health, dealing with drinking water. So welcome. And our two water councillors are here as well, Councillor Appleby and Councillor Marrera. Okay, welcome to everyone, and we will start off with the approval of the agenda. So could we have a motion, please? Councillor King, Councillor Bennett, all in favor? Thank you. That the September 26th agenda be approved. Staff reports. So we're going to turn this over to Mr. Brownstein, I think, to give us a report on water. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. This will be a multi-person presentation to council. We'll be starting with Steve Underwood through engineering. He's going to be going over a PowerPoint presentation. In regards to our capital improvements and asset management, I will then be doing a PowerPoint presentation from operational services, going over some of our current issues, how we're going to move forward, some of our asks and wants and needs in regards to capital money, operational money, etc. And then we'll be having another discussion with him. He's going to do a business presentation in regards to our community outreach, our informational campaign in regards to our water system and how we're going to move forward. And then we'll be closing out with Judy Eckert from IHA.
Okay. Thank you. Steve, you're first. Okay.
Looks like I do the short straw.
Okay, thank you.
I imagine as everyone presents, there may be some discussion that all of us might have to answer questions on, so we'll definitely have to come back up. Depending on how things go. We this year have been working on a new water capital plan for the town of the city's water system. The capital plan has a new lens to it over beyond what normal capital plans have, and then it's also has an asset management lens to it, so that we're not only look at the capital trying to keep things moving forward as growth occurs, but we're looking at what's it going to take to keep the system in its current state and ages. We worked through most of the capital side of the capital plan today. So this is an update council to tell you where we're at. We haven't finished the asset management piece of it yet this year. We will have it finished before the end of 2022, but so we're working on, but this is kind of an update as to where we're at. We were looking at with the new OCP, we looked at a 20-year lens for this document. So we're looking at how does our demand increase over the next 20 years as the OCP builds out. We projected population growth at 2%. The OCP had between 1 and 3 in the document. We want to try and get this aggressively correct, because these projects that are in the capital plan will be potentially ECC projects that are driven by development, some of them. So as demand increases, we chose 2, which could be considered on the high side sometimes, but it was halfway in between what the OCP recommended. So we projected the demands out for the 20 years. And then we looked at what does the demand look like if it's metered or unmetered? We're making assumptions with metering as to how much demand we can reduce. And then, you know, with unmetered, it's just basically demand increases as population increases, and that our per capita data demand doesn't change. What we look at here too is maximum data demand. We really need to be able to supply the water in the middle of summer. Our water system doesn't consume a lot of water in the middle of winter, but in the summer, our wells and our reservoirs and everything and our pipes need to be big enough to supply the water for our maximum day demand. This year was mid-July was maximum day demand, and on that day we ran all of our wells. And that can be a challenge if one of our wells happened to break down. We're kind of in that point. Go to the next slide. The slide shows our historical demand, and the slide is actually troubling. If you look at the blue line, that's where we try and operate our demand below the blue line, which means with our largest pump offline, we can still meet our maximum day demand. We crossed it in 2020. And we were a bit surprised when we blamed it on COVID. It was like, oh, it's just an anomaly, you know, people are staying home more, or irrigating more, or gardening more. I don't know what they're doing. But then 2021, it stayed high. And then this year it's high mark. We're looking at this data to try and understand what's happening. We're digging into it. It looks like we have a leak when we first look at the data. So we're actually just now, like this point got plotted up there last Friday. So we're looking now to try and explain it. We'll come back with a better explanation as to why. But that if that trend continues, we're not sustainable. We don't have enough source water to allow that trend to continue. So moving into next year, if this is actually real demand and not a leak or something that we can explain away in bad data, we're going to have irrigation restrictions imposed to try and curb this level of demand. And we really, you know, need to try and figure out where that water is going and explain it away. Slide. In the horizon of the water capital plan, we need to know how many or where our water is coming from. Right now, we are saying we don't have enough. So we looked at two lenses. One is if we implement water meters and we achieve 20% demand reduction in the first year and continue to reduce demand in years after that. This top of this chart shows that we need 2 new wells in the lifetime and capital plan. If we allow demand to continue to increase as population increases, you can see there's 6 new wells there. We don't know where 6 new wells will be drilled. We're not just, you can't just drill new wells. So it's not reasonable to assume that we could do that, drill 6 new wells. Also, the water quality with our current wells is, you know, subpar. They all need treatment plants. So we were in our capital plan, we're assuming that every new well needs a water treatment plant also with it. So as we work on the capital plan, we are proceeding assuming that metering becomes implemented, because we can't actually do the below. We would have to find a new source, which would be a Suez Lake, if we did not choose to proceed with metering.
Can I just ask a question?
Yep.
We looked at it, Suez Lake, didn't we?
We did.
And it just kind of didn't make sense. So
Economic, yeah, so we're back on, not back. We looked seriously at a Suez Lake to see if we could come up with a more economical way of providing water from an O&M perspective, because if we have 6 manganese groundwater water treatment plants, and Public Works is trying to drive around to 6 different facilities, the O&M becomes very onerous. Whereas if we switch to a Suez Lake, it's 1 water treatment plant, and the O&M becomes lower. When we looked at it, we did determine that if we had to have 2 groundwater treatment plants, it was more economical than running 1 surface water plant. But as soon as you go to 3 or 4, groundwater treatment plants, we should be seriously looking at the lake.
So if you put in a new well, like the ones that you've got in here, you've got 2 plants there. Does that will cover the wells that are in place right now, the 6, or do you still have to build new treatment plants for each well?
Yeah, can you go to the next slide?
Sorry, I'm-
Yeah, the next slide, I think, yeah, so that was quantity, I guess, when we do the capital plan, we look at quantity. Next is quality. And here's a listing of your current sources. It is confusing because they're numbered, except there's no number 7. But you can see that 4 of the wells, we've got an X beside, they do not have water quality that makes the Canadian drinking water standard for manganese. And therefore, we need treatment on all of those sources moving forward to become fully compliant with the Canadian drinking water standard. Those 2 wells that have it below, if you look at their capabilities, there are smaller sources. We can't supply the town with those 2 smaller wells. So as we drill new wells, or if we develop new wells, we're assuming that they'll need treatment as well. We need larger wells like well 5, and because we need them to have a higher capacity, and they'll most likely, given our location, need treatment.
On these 4 wells of magnesium, do we know if they've gone down over the years or the pressure, like so many pounds per inch or however you measure it?
It's,
Could one of them like run out of water?
yeah, no, one of them could run out of water. We haven't seen that, no, none of them have deteriorated to the point where they need to be. Often they can be redeveloped or rehabilitated. But what we have noticed is that the water quality for manganese has gotten worse as we pump them harder. So well number 8, when it was first drilled, didn't have any manganese, and then as we run it more and more, it's developed a higher concentration of manganese. Well 6 has manganese, yet well 7, which was just near it, had none. But it was the groundwater hydrologist's opinion that when you run it longer, it will bring that manganese with it through the chemistry that happens from the lake water that gets induced into the well.
That's more. In my understanding, you did commission one of the wells because it was too close to the sewer system.
That's well 7. We made an application to try and add it to the system. Well 7's always existed, which is why the name is as it is, but it was never connected to the system. We made application to connect it. We've been looking at those previous graphs of how we're short on water. We need to bring it online, but we have not received approval to connect well 7 to the system.
And if they come back, no, would there be an opportunity to like move it 20 feet or whatever distance you need so it could conform?
The challenge is if the sewer line is the criteria, then there isn't a spot near well 7. There's sewer lines in all of our neighborhoods within 30 meters of lots of, like you start drawing circles 30 meters away from lines. There isn't really real estate available. That spot was also challenging that there was that marshy area in the Y where that was kind of considered a higher risk area. We are actually meeting later this week with our groundwater hydrologist to talk about where well 9 is likely to be drilled, and frankly well 10.
So we were talking to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs at UBCM. And we did mention that there was a well there, but it couldn't be okay to put into operation because the sewer line. And fellow said to us, "Can't you move the sewer a little bit so it can?" So you've obviously answered that, and it doesn't fit. So you don't know where well 9 will go at this point, or do you have some ideas, or?
We have ideas, so we have ideas where we want to walk them with the groundwater hydrologist, get their opinion. The other thing to look at is even well 1, it says 295 there. Is there ways to make re-drilling them bigger? Like, can we get more out of our existing sources? But really, we do have some ideas on well 9 and 10. And so, we'll try and source them out, but we will be bringing to council a capital request to drill a test well in the coming months, so that we know where our source water is coming from moving forward. It's hard to finish the capital plan, you know, with any accuracy on cost, and you don't know where you're bringing the water from, how far you gotta bring it. The other thing is we can drill and develop a well, but we won't be able to bring it online if if the water quality doesn't meet the Canadian drinking water standards. So each application for a new source will have its own challenge with treatment. So there's the cost of the source capacity, but then there's the second cost to make that water quality meet Canadian drinking water guidelines. And if we have manganese in the new well that we develop, it will be more costly to bring on water.
Go ahead.
So wells 1 and 2, being on the smaller capacity side, is that because of the size of the well at the present time?
That's a question a bit over my skill set, but we have supplied all the records that we could possibly have on any of your wells, and supplied and drawn on a hydrologist, and that's the question that we ask him or her is, given, you know, this well record, is there any, or what's around here, is there any chance that we could make it larger and get more out of it? Usually that's not the case. Usually, if you can get 1,000 gallon a minute well, you're gonna put 1,000 gallon a minute well in. Often when they're limited to lower flows, like even well 7 was limited to, I think, 580. That was all that they could get out of it. It wasn't like we could made it any bigger.
How long as well, one in service? You got a year?
I do have those records, but yeah,
1920?
I guess it's 60s, but
Six.
again, I do have the record, yeah.
So I don't see well 2 on the map here, so is that, is there not a well 2, or is it not in operation, or?
My father could tell you a story about where well 2 is, I'm sure, but if I remember the story on well 2 is that it was abandoned due to it might have been hydrocarbons in the water. But I could, it's abandoned, it no longer exists.
Okay. So what we need to do is win the lottery, somebody does, eh? I don't know how, and we have applied for grants for these things, and we need to have better grant writing or something. I'm not quite sure how we do that. Go ahead, Bob.
How, historically, how soon does the manganese show up after you drill a well, if you're lucky to get day 1 clearance?
Yeah. It'll show up, it'll start showing up in the first year.
First year,
Yeah, it definitely, with continuous pumping, it shows up. It starts to show up and then it seems to settle in at a certain concentration at some point, but it gets worse and worse with continuous pumping.
It doesn't matter which side of the lake.
No, like 4 and 5 are on one side of the lake and 8 is on the other, 6 is on the other, so no, it doesn't seem to matter.
And it wouldn't matter if you had to drill 9, would you be looking at the population growth, and or would it really make a difference? It just all feeds into the lines.
Well, ideally, we are, yeah, we would like to feed the water treatment plant, so we would like to build a raw water distribution or collection system that feeds the water treatment plants and connect as many wells as we can to the raw water system. So we need to plan the size of those pipes, almost guessing where the wells are going to be, but we do need to find our next well, because we're already at that point.
So are you telling me you have to upgrade some of the pipes if we put this new well in?
We haven't built a treatment plant yet, so no, we don't have to upgrade the pipes, and we'll make sure that we build them large enough to keep our flexibility open. But the current plan and the plan we've applied to for the Kingfisher treatment plant involved a raw water main all the way from east to Suyas. From wells 4 and 5 is going to pump all the way to Kingfisher water treatment plant. And then we were going to collect well 8 on the way by, and well 1 to one plant.
Is there a big enough piece of property there to do that?
It's getting tight with the splash park and the other uses, but
No, I meant the Kingfisher, is it not down on, it's not the one down on Kingfisher here that?
Yeah, it's by the splash park.
Oh,
The old public works, you know, the old public works building was the building was zeroed on. I know it's being used for another purpose, but that was kind of the area we thought the water change fountain.
Oh, I see, okay. So there is another one down closer to the bridge on Kingfisher.
Another well 8.
That's just a well.
Yeah,
Not a
so-
treatment plant.
No,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, 8.
Yeah. there is a map at the end where it's kind of showing.
Yes,
We're almost there. So after we go through quality and quantity, we look at the active distribution system. We project your demand and we look to see, you know, with the increased demand, does that affect our fire protection? Does that affect our ability to provide the water that, you know, we set the developments that we will provide? There's where there's a glimmer of good news. The distribution system is in decent shape. There's a one, if you go to the next slide, there's one trunk main connection that's shown there in orange. That's being worked on as we rebuild roads. We've built 12-inch pipes or larger on either side of that go from the bridge all the way to the main reservoirs. We just need to connect that one piece, and the distribution system continues to provide fire flow at or above current levels, you know, into the 2043 window with growth. The reservoirs are also large enough, as long as we work towards putting standby power on our sources. So as we you know, have more and more generators on our wells, our reservoirs can stay the same size. So
What's the capacity of the reservoir? So we had no water intake. With the reservoirs went up one day.
the emergency storage is 25% of one day.
Okay.
So
That's all 3 reservoirs.
yeah, different zones have different demand, but the main reservoirs would be the ones that we're most worried about, and yeah, so it's not like they can stay up there for days.
No, I just saw
In
maybe
the summer.
4 hours.
Yeah, more like 8 hours, yeah. It's not a lot. But it meets kind of current standard. So the next slide shows a map is where all these sites are to help kind of show you the location. If you know, if I'm using a term 4 and 5 or 8, that's where they are. You can see it says well 6 and 7, but 7 is basically coming off, and we're going to be looking for 9 and 10. Maybe we come up with better names eventually, but that's what we're with. And the Kingfisher, proposed Kingfisher water treatment plant shown there with a green triangle.
Yeah.
The Spartan water treatment plant was always part of the plan as well. We were going to do 2 treatment plants. We are going to do well 6 and 7 with 1 treatment plant, and then the rest with the second. We've been making grant applications for just the Kingfisher. With demand management, we're like with metering, we were hopeful that we could actually leave well 6 off and run on all our other wells with one manganese removal plant for a longer period of time. If we can't figure out what's causing that increase in demand, we're not going to be able to do that. We're going to be pushing towards 2 treatment plants or a longer raw water line and 1 larger treatment plant, but some sort of solution like that. Once we kind of see where well 9 and 10 are likely to sit on this map, we'll plan the raw water side to be as economical as we can.
Jared, what about up to 35th, that area considered the town? Which they're trying, they want us to expand up there.
These bench,
Yeah. Would that be another well? That's a total different question.
that's a totally different question. It's no different than demand as we look to develop outside town boundaries. For instance, the north end of the lake, if they decide to come on, that's a development driven demand. And right now it's quasi included in our capital program. But again, it's an unknown. If we start seeing demand from outside town boundaries. That may trigger a well that much faster. Because right now, we can't allow it. So basically, anybody who wants to come in from outside town boundaries. The current point is that I honestly am saying no. And not at this time. Until we have a one.
We have to talk into your mic so they can hear you up there on the screen.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bob. The same thing.
We talked about emergency situation here a minute ago. Is there any way that Jared and his group can utilize the lake water in the case of emergency by putting it into the system? Today? So understand, as an emergency.
If you pose in an emergency situation, because we can often figure things out, but no, it's not set up to do that, but we could make something happen pretty fast. But that's not.
There's huge caveats to that. We all of a sudden started using lake water into our domestic system. The requirements of treatment just gone away. So now you're entirely, boil water. You're now having to go in and reflush the entire system once you get it off the lake water to bring it domestic. The well water back into play. In a dire need and the real no moment, it could happen. My recommendation would be no, but it can happen.
Okay, another question is with the well down on I want to say Finch, but it's not the one down by the park, the water splash park, well one. If that came offline and we went into the lake somewhere near there to get water and put it through the them existing treatment plant.
So the treatment plant that we're proposing will be removing manganese, but it's a primary purpose. We'll also have UV. But that doesn't make, that process wouldn't make lake water safe to drink. That's a whole different type of treatment plant. And that is not a good location to take water out of the lake anyway. We do actually have an intake there called 9A. That produces the terrible water out of the lake. That's why when we studied the lake, we looked at the system 8 intake, which is north of town in the rural area. That's a place where we can access higher quality lake water. The lake's deeper and it's more in a place of lake current. So, and then we would need a filtration plant to filter that water.
And that's more expensive than the manganese plant.
Yes, manganese plant is like a pressure vessel with some sort of media in it, and it's a simpler process.
But before the water twinning came in, system 9, area 9, in the summertime. We were on a boil water because the water came out of the lake. And was treated. So it's just been changed and we've had that for many, many years. So that is a possibility if we need it. To go back to that.
Going backwards isn't.
I know, but in an emergency.
Yeah, well, that's but I think we should put the emergency situation aside. If the, depending on the severity of the emergency, we'll provide water. If we're providing water that's not, potable, then the residents will be on some sort of do not consume order. And that's not very good for the tourist town like Studios.
I totally get it.
I gotta, like, when you look at your wells and you drill a new well and say it comes up around 600 or 700 capacity, like the average is here, but how many houses would that serve? On top of where we are now?
Well, that's that's an interesting, I've never had the question posed that way, but it'll, when you look at the graph a few slides back, it'll meet our 2% growth for many years, like 10. And it gives us the ability to continue to work with our demands and our public education to go to that one.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so really that one well, if we can to manage demand properly, that one new well actually gets us to the life of the plan. You can see 2043 is where we actually need.
And we have no idea till we drill the well what the numbers, it could be 200, you might three wells.
Yeah, and these are assumed to be 600 in these steps. So, yeah, if we get a 1200, it just erases that second step, right? Because we now have more capacity. And we meet that 2% growth target over the,
I guess I'm thinking ahead. We've already passed the opportunity to build over 500 homes, which is your 10%. In the next couple of years, it could get built instead of taking 5 years to get built. Plus, there's possibly OIB might want to build a major development that would add another 10% to our capacity. So I'm just wondering if this is kind of, sounds good because it's a smaller amount of number over 10 years, where maybe a proper water treatment plant connected to the lake for the 30-40 million would be like a 30-40 year lifetime project.
Yeah, it's not likely that, we're gonna be able to find well 11 or 12. At the end of this plan, the lake is likely going to be your next source. Whether it's your primary source or a smaller source, maybe we only need 1,000 gallons a minute from the lake and we continue to use our wells. That'll be the choice that we make, I think, in the next capital plan. But we're trying to, I guess, develop a plan for the next 20 years on how we're going to meet this demand moving forward.
Got any good news today?
No, I haven't got any good news. I'm trying to figure out how come we went from 13 million liters a day to 18 million, 19 million liters a day in 3 years. An increase. It just, the graph goes straight up on page 4. Now you say it may be a leak. And if we've got that kind of a leak, we better take care of it now.
It's likely 10 leaks, you know what I mean? It's not one leak. This is 1,000 gallons a minute we're missing right now. So we need to find it. And
Is there a magic way of finding it? Can
Do
you-
it.
unfortunately, in your soils, it's difficult because leaks don't surface. Water metering would be a way, because these leaks are often on private property. And so we could be finding this on private property. When we did universal metering in the town of Lillooet, 3 customers were using the same amount of water as everyone else. And we just had to visit those 3 houses, and demand was significantly hurt. But they no longer had ponds in the backyards that they thought were natural.
But do we not have to make sure that our backyard is clean first?
We are, and so we're at, because of this data point, we are actively looking at data to see if we can determine whether or not we have a leak. We will be looking at this much harder. We'll be looking in the coming weeks to figure out if we are likely dealing with a distribution system leak. Or a supply anomaly where we've been beating ourselves in proper data for 3 years. But we're gonna get to the bottom of this increase now that it's a trend. We blamed it on COVID as an anomaly, but it's not. 3 years isn't an anomaly.
So, are we going to listen to other people first, or are we gonna give Steve a chance to say, here's next steps? Does that come after, or?
I have one more slide to
Oh, okay.
drive it home. To the end of your package. Really this is what we're faced with, is trying to develop a capital plan. And a lot of these costs look like they need to be at the very front of it. And it's very challenging to propose this over a 20-year window when our demand is where it's pacing. And that plan hasn't necessarily been developed or proposed yet, but we need to sit down with finance and Jared to figure out how we're going to propose this capital plan. But these are the numbers that we're looking at, and you can total that quickly. It's north of $20 million that we're looking at, and we absolutely would be easier to implement with an infrastructure grant. We've applied 3 times to the Kingfisher plant, that $12 million project. we do need to get some feedback on those applications. We haven't received any feedback on any of the three. I can tell you when I write them, our water conservation plan answers, or our water conservation answers to the sections in the applications are weak. We don't do a good job of setting targets and meeting them for demand management, which is what they want us to be doing. And we also did receive some feedback when we submitted the first of the three grant applications that, we weren't likely to get funding because we just got funded for twinning. And so we need to, I think on the political side, get around that, but I don't think that's a fair answer that we were doing 20 projects. And then when the manganese regulation changed and we switched to water quality, then we all of a sudden don't qualify because we had been doing stuff in the rural area. I think we need to work on that on all sides, staff and council.
It's too bad because we just met them last week.
Yeah.
We just were up at UBSM, and I don't know if you know Brian Bedford, that works under public affairs, and that's where you're writing the grants to.
Yeah.
And he said, I guess, I don't know, it's you or RCO to contact him or to remind him he was gonna look in at your application to see how we could tweak it for next time or how we could make it look better to be successful. So has there been any movement on that?
So we have this card.
Yeah, we did have some meetings, obviously not with Rod, but with Alan, and that's where I'm relaying that feedback about training. Obviously, we were told that in those meetings. I can tell you it's likely water conservation. It's going to be what they're going to be, some of the feedback they're going to be giving us. But yes, we can have those calls and those meetings. We've written lots and lots of successful grant applications. You know what a good one looks like. Your system, given that the regulation changed, the strong application. We've made it very strong. We had OIP support letters, we had IHA support letters. But what we don't have is good answers to water conservation.
I'll just make one other comment. It's kind of, I don't think you want to hear it and subject to change. The next funding won't be till 2/24. Is what we were told.
It's frustrating because the funding that we have applied for the last three hasn't even been announced. So it's super frustrating. Like we make applications and we don't hear back. You can't do capital planning when you don't have any type of scheduling on when the money might be able to come. But we also won't be able to delay forever. We do have to propose a plan.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously, I think what we need to do is propose a plan. And then when we make applications, say that we'll accelerate our plan. That's the only way we can do this. We need to come up with a way of funding that 12 million in treatment and likely 18 million by the time we actually implement. Because we'll be building two plants likely. In the lifetime of this plan, and then on a future application, basically say. We'll do it 5 years sooner, or 3 years sooner, or 2 years, whatever we can do.
So you think it'd be prudent more moving forward to maybe put some money in the budget to look at moving forward on the well?
We have to move forward on it. We have to know where our water is going to be. It's not well 7. We have to put money in the budget to find another source. We are at a point where we need to plan it and implement it, because you hear Jared saying things like, I don't know where my water is coming from. I can't approve development. We can't get to that state. We need to have a plan that's working and know that we can provide the water as we move forward.
I agree.
These numbers are dated when,
These are today. We updated the 12 million just recently for the latest grant, 2021.
so by Christmas time, we can add 2%.
Construction's been inflating much faster than 2%.
Yeah.
I'm just picking up.
Yeah, the way that it's worked in the last 3 years, it's like your water, man. It's like, you have to have it when you're ready to build it, the actual number, but these are the order of magnitudes in 2022. That if we built it now, it could be 10% next year higher. That's the reality of the inflationary forces we're seeing in construction.
So how do we deal with things today? Because we have the need, today we have the concern today for people that want potable water. So what do we tell them? No, we can't say you've got to wait till 2024 to even think about this. We've got to have a plan in place right now, so I'm not sure whether that's you, Steve, or, or account staff to say, here's what we're doing today to try and make this safe for people that are here at the moment.
The only thing we can do necessarily to make it safe, like to drink the tap water, would be to install treatment plants. I think public education about it, but maybe IHA can speak to that more, would be all you can do right now. But that's not gonna make it safe.
So boiling water is that? No,
Boiling water doesn't solve manganese.
no, I know it doesn't.
Yeah. So you can't tell them to do that. They can drink bottled water. They can install treatment systems in like reverse osmosis treatment systems in their houses. They can do that. Those are costly. If everyone was gonna do that, we'd be better off building the treatment plant right now and just taking that money, and investing it there. It would be a shame for people to be paying for that and then also having to endure higher water rates later when we do implement.
How did we get here?
Yeah,
I mean, planning along, past councils or people's are just kind of, because you guys have been. the whole-
Yeah, so
I just wonder what.
the distribution system, like you said, is in pretty good shape. We've been definitely, steering that in the right direction. The trunk mains, the reservoirs, they're good. 2007 is when council or the water conservation plan was adopted that said meters. Demand management, we've been focused on demand management, but not implementing it. And then well 7 was always sitting there. We knew what we were doing. And a couple of years ago, when we realized this was getting to the point where we needed it, we made application to connect well 7, and it was rejected. We made another application this year, to try and propose a higher level of treatment and mitigating those sewer lines. And again, I don't think we formally heard, but we can basically, I understand it runs successful. So now we don't know where it was, even though we assumed we did know. We now have to quickly find this next spot and bring it online.
So were we talking, am I confused? Because we're talking about that, WTP for magnesium, then we're talking a well. Is one for water supply, or are they both trying to do the same thing?
Yes, and when we talk about quantity, we were at the point where we need another well because our demand is high. Yeah. Our per capita demand is high. If we could reduce our per capita demand in the maximum day. And so it's that education in the July-August timeframe during those heat waves of not throwing all the water you can on your lawn. That's what's happening. And our demand goes, it's a 2-week heat wave that the sweetest gets, and our demand goes to maximum day demand. And we need to knock that down to be able to use, because our wells right night today, they're fine. We have probably only gonna run 4 out of the whatever, right? And so there's several that are off today, but in July, they all ran. And that is not.
Shutting down our parks. So one way to kind of get into the line. Get us through.
It's a little combination of everything. Our demand within the organization is there, yes. We do put a lot of water on our parks, yes. Does that compare with the amount of water being used for irrigation throughout the community? Probably not. Again, going back to the original discussion of water meters, once those are implemented, we're going to see that demand curve change. It's going to go down. We're going to have the necessary data to start making these larger decisions in regards to where our source water is coming from. And maybe, we put off that well for another 3 or 4 years, allowing us time to better understand what we need to do. So again, I just want to pull this back a little bit. Again, there's certain steps, and I'll go through it through my PowerPoint presentation in regards to where we need to go and how we need to get it. But I really don't want water meters to be lost in this either. Without them, we are in worse shape than we realize.
Without meters, all we're measuring is how much water we're putting into the system. We're not accounting at all for where it's going, whereas if we did have meters in the system, we would at least be able to total that usage. Compare with the supply and see where it's going. We would be able to make better decisions, especially if you're the maximum days. That's the primary time that we need to curb our demand is in July, August, heat waves, or or during the heat of June, if the one happens to come again. And that's when our maximum day occurred in 2021.
Okay, sorry, somebody. Go ahead.
How's that, you said that osmosis purifies the water
Reverse osmosis, yeah.
in your homes.
Yeah, you're looking for something that would remove manganese from system that. I'm not, an expert on under the counter treatment stuff, that's a little bit on my skill set, but that technology would be capable of doing it. I don't think that, like, most of the other technologies would need some sort of chemical addition in front of it, and that's not necessarily safe to be under someone's counter.
Hey, anybody else have any questions of Steve?
I'm not leaving, so I can come back and.
Okay, you can let them. Thank you. So, would you like that?
Thank you, your worship. I guess I'm up next.
Okay.
You can pull up my presentation, please, Graham.
There.
No, you do.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
I just gotta check the screen share here.
Thank you. So my presentation is a little bit more into the weeds. Kind of give you an understanding of where we're at, where we need to be, and where we're going. So there's three major concerns that are going on in our water distribution system. We have water quality concerns in regards to manganese. We have water demand concerns. We are consuming almost as much water as we produce, which is, not an effective way of managing the water system. And we have an ongoing need to show water conservation. Water conservation is key in grant funding, is key in making sure that we are leading edge when it comes to governance and providing the community with the appropriate measures to show that water is actually a very rare commodity and we need to treat it as such. Next slide, please. So our water quality are current. We have ongoing groundwater concerns from users. It's been highlighted throughout the community. Generally, it's been in the outlining sections of our water distribution system. The closer you get to sources, the less of a concern it is. The further away we get from our sources, the more of a concern it is. This can contribute to contact time with chlorine. This can be in regards to flow directions when we use flushing. This can be a cause of an operational change in our distribution system. Can cause a lot of the groundwater issues. Ultimately, our water distribution system needs to be flushed. We currently do a static flushing, what I would consider a static flushing. So we're turning the water system over to get rid of that brown water look. We are not creating velocities and flow rates in our water distribution system to remove the biofilms, the incrustations that are happening in our water mains. That is a much larger undertaking, a little bit detailed way. 4 of our 6 water production wells, as Steve has already alluded to, or Mr. Underwood, have manganese concentrations greater than our MACs, or our maximum allowed concentration. This again contributes to the groundwater concerns, contributes to the issues with water quality. Next slide, please. So in regards to your question, your worship, how we're going to address water quality in the short term, that's first on everybody's mind. We've started a reservoir cleaning process. So we cleaned the new cell on a 340 reservoir site last week, the week before. Fairway Hills was cleaned last week, and 402 will be cleaned this week. We are hoping to clean the old cell for the 340 due to access issues, and we'll take it offline to redo that valve chamber. Unidirectional flushing. Again, this is the big one.
Jared, can I just stop you?
Yep.
So there's four reservoirs. that
There's
we use?
3 reservoir sites. We have 4 reservoirs.
Thank you.
How dirty were they?
Actually, Mr. Lang, would you care to come to the mic, please? I wasn't here for the cleaning operations, so I'll let Mike do some.
Thank you.
They needed to be done. They needed to be done some time ago. There was thick amounts of sedimentation on the bottom of those reservoirs, inches thick in some places. So, yeah, they're greatly overdue, I would say at this point.
So should they be done once a year? Should they be, or does it depend what the sediment is in there?
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this as an opportunity to clean slate, and then buy a remote operated vehicle next year. We're going to do another inspection of those to see what the accumulation is. And then once we have that information, then we will start putting them on a rotation, depend on what the requirements are.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
I just mentioned, you said we have 4 reservoirs, but we're gonna use 3.
No, we have 4 reservoirs. We have 3 zones,
Oh,
so 3 pressure zones.
Oh,
So your 340 pressure zone would be your 2 largest reservoirs,
Okay.
or one new and or most ancient. So to answer your question, your worship, yes, there will be a reservoir cleaning program developed. Sure, we will be doing this on a regular basis. Mr. Lang is correct. We are setting the reset button. We will start now to manage it correctly. Once water treatment has come on board, reservoir cleaning will become less of a concern. Right now, with our reservoirs, that are storage facilities for sedimentation. So we get contact time and then everything settles out to the bottom. We'll see how that goes. The unidirectional flushing, as I said, that's moving large volumes of water at high velocities through our distribution system. This is to provide, what we call scour and the lines. We are hoping for a late 2022 to early 2023 starting on that. This is contingent on staffing and most availability. Again, ongoing aesthetic flushing. So this is where we remove large volumes under slow velocity. So we're letting the water basically trickle out of the distribution system to remove that sediment material that's been caused by disruption. Next slide, please. This is our big one. Too hard. This is one where once we start a unidirectional flushing program, these are the risks that we're going to start to incur. We need more resources. I will get into further detail further down the slide presentation. This colored water will expand for long periods of time. This is not going to be a one-time shot where we go in one day and we'll make everything better and we'll walk away. We will go in one day and we'll be cleaning it up for weeks. Then we'll go into another section. We'll go in one day and we'll be cleaning it up for weeks. Some of the other risks that may come into play is valve failure due to use. We have valves in our systems for upwards of 60 years old that have never been actuated. The second you touch a valve that hasn't been actuated in 60 years, there's potential for it to move, there's potential for it to break, there's potential for it to close and never open. So those are considerations that we need to take into play when we're doing these directional flushing programs. We could experience water service failures due to sedimentation. So all of a sudden we start pulling the sediment material through our distribution system, trying to get it off the main walls. Some of the sediment might head down services and clog services. It might get stuck in meters, it might get stuck in DRPs, it might get stuck in curb stops and main stops, which will then delay our process in our unidirectional flushing system because our resources aren't there to manage everything. We may experience water main breaks. We change direction, we change pressures, we change flow characteristics. We may start seeing water mains disturbing themselves, breaking, which again causes us to then shut down unidirectional flushing programs, not go in and make repairs, and then have to flush the systems that have now completely been de-energized and de-watered. Causes a whole bunch of other issues. With that. Hydrant failures would be another one. We will be using our hydrants as slush points in order to get the velocities we want from ports. We could have hydrants fail due to this. Just haven't been used in a while. We could have lead snapped. Myriad of other things. These are the big two, and this will be, I don't mean to throw IHA into this mix, but these two will be ones that will be coordinating with IHA. There may be a need for water quality advisories and possibly boil water notices as we go through this unidirectional flushing program. We don't know how our water system is going to react yet. Most likely we will do a water quality advisory preemptive in areas going in and doing this in. Should bacteriological sampling come back, or turbidity levels, which is the color of the water, start to become elevated for a period of time, but in our water those areas in which we were doing this flushing. Next slide, please. So here's some of the capital, and again, this is on top of what Steve's already talked about. Some of the capital improvements we can do with water quality, water system movement. This removes dead ends, allows water to move in multiple different directions, helps us with, that last section of pipe that sits there for weeks upon weeks upon weeks because demand is not high enough. Kind of back in the boat. Our water distribution systems aren't designed for domestic demand, they're designed for fire demand. So you've got a 10-inch pipe running down a road for fire demand, where in reality a 6-inch will provide you for domestic demand. So you've got that volume of water that doesn't really move too much because it's designed for fire flows. So when you start to loop systems, you start to see that no longer happening, where you've got a 150 meter run of pipe that doesn't move because all you've got is boreholes on it and it's just not turning. Pressure zone interconnections. We have a lot of pressure zone interconnections that are right now they're done via valve. So the valves never really get closed until such time that either somebody makes a mistake on operating, or we need to adjust that pressure zone and we'll open it out. We would look into interconnect those with PRVs. So again, it gets rid of those dead endpoints, allows water to flow more freely through the distribution system. Automatic flushing facilities where looping is unavailable. So there are sections in our distribution system where we can't loop. For instance, at the end of the shore, I can't loop it anywhere unless we direction deal with the lake. That would be a great opportunity for a flushing point that automatically turns that water line over on a regular basis and then require that power, etc. Online instrumentation. Mr. Lang is starting to do this, where we have turbidity and chlorine monitors in our distribution system. They're constantly monitoring these things and allowing us to be proactive instead of reactive to water quality concerns. And last but not least is groundwater treatment. Of course, that's the big one elephant in the room. This is manganese and iron removal plant, including UV and a myriad of other things. So That's the big ticket. That will not get rid of the need for unidirectional flushing now and in the future. It will aid with our unidirectional flushing program. Unidirectional flushing will never go away. Once we've completed probably 2 years worth of unidirectional flushing, I'll be in a better position to comment on whether or not, it's a yearly program, a once every 2 year program, or a once every 5 year program. But
I have to apologize, I got a doctor's appointment in 13 minutes.
Yeah. Go ahead. Thanks, Clyde.
next slide, please. So look. Water demand current, and let me know if I'm starting to lose you guys. Landscape irrigation is one of our biggest contributors to summer demand. We see our demand go through the roof in July and August. This is evidence, wells 1, 3, and 8 are running 24 hours a day for those months. Wells 4 and 5 can run up to 22 hours a day during those months. As Mr. Underwood alluded to, if one of those wells goes down, we're putting emergency preparedness to make sure demand is curved accordingly. Because again, we need to maintain fire protection of our reservoirs. That is our critical levels. And without those wells running as much as they do, we don't maintain that fire flow in our reservoirs. Next slide, please. So water demand short term.
It likes to skip. There's a nice story.
As Mr. Underwood alluded to, water restrictions implemented soon. We may have to start bringing on stage 2 water restrictions at the beginning of June. Trying to curb that irrigation demand during the summer and the need for enforcement. We can put on all the water restrictions in the world if nobody's following up and making sure people are abiding by it. It's hard to make sure that it's being adhered to. And so address the community's green spaces and parks to reduce water needs. I have already asked that the public works superintendent look at this, look at trying to optimize our watering schedule in our parks so that we're not blocking water every day, all day. We look at those soil optimizations to see if we can get away with water 3 times a week, maybe 4 times a week, or we get water every day for 15 minutes, and this will allow us to do. Next slide, please. So water demand capital, a new production well, again, with Mr. Underwood, needs to address groundwater capacities. Need to look at surface water again, should groundwater not be an option. That'll be the big one. If we cannot find a viable groundwater source, whether it be quantity or quality, we're going to the lake. And going to the lake will improve its own issues. Going to the lake also solves some of our other water issues, so it's the catch-22. Again, I just want to send a message on implementing a universal metering program. It's key to reducing water demand and part of our water conservation plan. I know the council's on board, but I just want to make sure that it is not out there again. This can't be something that we put off again and again and again. Thanks. So project costs. So this is related to water quality improvements, water demand improvements, water conservation improvements, operational improvement, and increases to address water quality, water demand, and water conservation. I had to put the caveat in this. These are estimates. They will need to be confirmed project implementation. These are best guesses at this point. The operational I'm fairly comfortable with. The capital, as Mr. Underwood so nicely pointed out, can fluctuate with 30%, 4% over a 6-month period. Next one, please. So groundwater treatment with metering. Mr. Underwood already alluded to this, saying on $12 million treatment plant. Again, assistance through grant funding, hopefully we're successful. Groundwater treatment without metering. Mr. Underwood, I estimated this at 18 mil. So this is due to the fact that the current treatment plant was designed with metering, so showing our demand decrease. If metering doesn't go ahead, we need to now increase the size of that plant to accommodate greater flows. And there is also the possibility of not getting grant assistance with that, so now you're looking at a $18 million self-funded capital program for our metering. Surface water treatment, anywhere from 30 to 40 million. Again, metering is part of this. If we move forward with metering, we have a better chance of grant funding. If we don't move forward with metering, showing that we take water conservation seriously, we could be self-funding, 40 to 30 to 40 million dollars. Next slide, please. Water demand capital, again, universal water meter. Currently it is shown as a self-funded capital program at 4.7 million. A new production well between 5 and 7. This includes treatment. Mr. Edward alluded to a new well being 700,000. I've included the treatment costs to go with that new well, those figures. And again, a surface water intake at 30 to 40 million. Next slide, please. Operationally, Chris's, this is general. Should we move forward with these types of capital investments? Surface water treatment, upwards of $250,000 a year for O&M, not including staff. This is for one treatment plant. Groundwater, we can be looking upwards of $150,000 a year for general O&M, not including staff. We may require 2 plants in the long term or more, depending on spacing, availability of groundwater, etc. And universal metering, yes, there's a $4.7 million capital investment, but there'll also be a $50,000 a year ongoing operating investment to start building up reserves to replace those meters when we start. Next slide, please. Last but not least is staffing. I only got one smile in the room, and that's my superintendent. So new staff member in 2022 at $140,000. We used the FTE funding for our ops staff for that. So in 2023, we will be asking that for that operations staff to be filled. We will be asking for an additional FTE for a senior water operator and an additional FTE for a water wastewater operator at $265,000. 2024 we'll be asking for another 2 FTEs at $265,000. And in 2025 we'll be asking for 1 additional FTE. This goes hand in hand with trying to do unidirectional flushing to accommodate treatment plants coming online to again bring our systems up to where they need to be in the short term and long term. That is the end of my presentation for today. Any questions?
Yeah, no, I totally support the idea. As this town grows, we definitely need more water, whether it's a well coming from the lake. I guess that would be a decision we'll have to make. But I guess I keep hearing about with the brown water, and you keep talking about getting rid of magnesium, but the magnesium's been in these wells for 10, 15 years, and we didn't have brown water. So how do you compare, why are we comparing magnesium to brown water?
Just started with, I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, you've always had groundwater. Every time we turned on a fire hydrant or tied into the water system for my entire career, we've stirred up groundwater. So there's always been manganese in the wells, and you've always and there's always been this slime on the walls of your pipes. So when we cut into your pipes, we can reach in and just pull it out by the handful. It grows on the walls of the, or it accumulates on the walls of the pipe. And your reservoir, when we built a new cell, so when we built a new one on the side, there was over 1.5 feet of manganese in the bottom of the old reservoir. When we brought it online, that we were able to get out of there when we did that, but there's always been manganese. In 2012, we were actually did a pilot project for manganese removal treatment, and that was a council's request because of the ongoing problems with groundwater. And that we showed what it would take to remove it back then from an aesthetic perspective. That was the reason we were looking at it back then. Now we're looking at it because it's a requirement. So the groundwater's always been there, but now we actually have a requirement to remove it. And that will, once we start removing it on every source and flush it out of the system. We will turn a corner in this, we will be able to start having less and less groundwater complaints.
Right. You kind of answered my question. We're still gonna have some brown water. Even we spend this 24 million.
Every pipe in the distribution system is coated on the inside wall with a thick layer of this manganese. And it'll take time and effort to get it out.
Just kind of one question. You talked to us before about getting X amount of calls per week or every 2 weeks on brown water. Has that substantially gone down now that we started some of this flushing?
Let us see if I speak to that.
Over the last couple of weeks, as demand had reduced and we were able to slow down the production from those well sites that are the main contributors. The water quality complaints have dropped significantly over the last few years.
So would you say it's substantially, would you say it's gone from 20 down to maybe 2 or 3?
I haven't had one for the last few.
Well, that's even better. Thank you. Good job.
No, Mike's been very good because he told me a couple of times he's gone out to somebody's house, flushed it, helped them deal with it because it was really bad and that, obviously that's work. We just wondered how many times you've had to do that and does that happen on a weekly basis or a daily basis?
Definitely depends on time of year. A system demand increases, we bring those well sites on. And irrigation starts to pick up, it starts to move that water around. That's probably the main influence with the chlorination that we're seeing. So as different areas, we're actually plotting using some GIS mapping, showing our worst areas of town. But we've also had those dates set as those certain wells come on. That's when we're seeing the larger influence regards to discoloration of water.
With water meters going to agricultural land inside the town? Like 10% of our land is agriculture in town. Yes, they have meters on them?
No, two different systems, Spencer. So the agricultural users are on an agricultural system. They're not using our domestic system to irrigate those farm fields. The irrigation I'm referring to is your lawn.
No, I understand that. Yeah, over 10% of our is green.
Yeah, and that would be contributed to the lake intakes and not contributed to our domestic system.
We've touched on meters just slightly. I know we're gonna get more in a minute or two. Are all our parks and maintenance shop and whatever else all metered yet?
Councilor, I want to say yes, but I can't say definitively yes. I know all our new irrigation systems as they come in are metered. I'm not 100% confident whether or not all our existing the meter
Shop
the shop is metered.
and the shop on the golf course.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are we going to ask Judy to speak now or what?
Actually, I was going to let Tim do his presentation if that's possible. Just kind of review what we're going to do from the community information campaign, and then I will leave the basketball out.
Go ahead, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim Hannes. I'm the president of Habit. We are a marketing and communications firm with a lot of experience in public awareness and education campaigns. For the last several years, we've been running Make Water Work and Don't Move a Muscle campaigns for the Okanagan Basin. And that's how we got referred to the team in Osoyoos. I'm just going to share my screen and show you a little bit of our plan. Okay. So this is what we've identified as the problem. You've heard this all from previous speakers. We know that maintenance is required, which will affect the quality of the tap water and possibly lead to service outages. We know that the new Canadian guidelines have changed, that the current water quality does not meet the new Canadian guidelines. The water production capacity is actually below the safe level during that peak demand, the maximum demand during the summer. and that water consumption is actually growing due to population growth, irrigation increases, etc. And that a water conservation plan is required to fund future system expansion, but there is perhaps resistance from the public. There we go. So our solution is to inform the public openly about the water issues on the horizon and how we'll be dealing with those issues. We're labeling this a water transparency campaign. We want to be completely transparent about the issues and what are the solutions, the steps that are being taken to address that. So we're developing a campaign with 2 phases. So the first phase is a paid media campaign. And the objectives there, what we're trying to achieve are to, number one, build awareness of the initiative to upgrade the water utility. Leverage the impact to the ratepayer from the water main flushing. There is an impact that is visible, and focus that attention on the campaign website. We want to use that website to further educate the public on the challenges and opportunities of the utility upgrade plan. So really drive all that attention to one focal point and convert visitors to that site to advocates. So for example, have them pre-register for a water meter could be one way of measuring that success. And we want to measure campaign effectiveness via digital metrics. So pre-registration, site traffic, email alerts, signups, etc. And focus questions from the public and media to that central location so that they've got a place to go. If they've got a question, we want to respond to those questions in a timely manner. Those responses would be provided by town officials and then post those questions and answers on the site. We also want to capture visitor information to provide an inexpensive and effective way of communicating future updates. So if there's a future announcement that we want to get out, here's another way that we can spread the message. During the beginning phases of the campaign, we're going to be a little more intensive in our media. We're going to use broadcast radio and television. So we've booked spots with the top stations in the area. And that gives us a number of benefits. One, reaching a wide audience. It's a highly engaged audience. So for example, the spots we have on Global Kelowna, which serves the entire Okanagan Basin, has some of the highest ratings and viewership for local news in the country. And we want to leverage the brand credibility of these national broadcasters to help elevate our message as well. We're going to be running digital spots on Castanet, the local newspaper, digital newspaper. Local news is king. It's always in demand, and this publication is a good fit for us. Digital out of home. We plan on running digital billboards in public facilities such as the local arena to generate additional impressions in areas that are really tightly connected to the community and part of that community experience. And also direct mail. We want to make sure that everybody is informed, that they have information in front of them. So we're going to be sending a printed information package to every homeowner in Osoyoos. And we think it makes sense to offer this as an option. Sharing information on the project is really key to our transparent approach, and just want to make sure everybody is included. Phase 2, once that initial phase is done, would involve updating the website with new information, any notices that need to go up, any Q&A that needs to be updated. A really key component is sharing progress reports and success stories. There's a challenge right now to be faced. It has to be faced. It has to be dealt with. Well, let's share how it's progressing. Let's share the success stories that are coming out of this effort. We want to send out email notifications of key events in the upgrade trajectory, and as well inform local news media and keep them in on the loop. We really feel that consistency and a long-term view is going to be key to shaping public opinion on the upgrade project. Success, as we measure it by a shift in public opinion, it's not going to happen overnight. We really need to communicate frequently, transparently, and consistently to ensure that the public and media viewpoints align with the reality of the situation and the validity of the upgrade plan. We definitely want to celebrate milestones to help allay concerns and show the public that achievements are being made and that their water security is in good hands. Some key messaging again, Water Smart Osoyoos, proactively taking action to ensure clean, safe water tomorrow and for future generations. Water security is also a key component of this, and that action is being taken. to ensure that we achieve those goals. We wanted to develop a rally point for the campaign, something that really people could remember quickly and easily. We could use across all marketing materials and make it a call to action. So we've developed Water Smart Osoyoos as the rally point for the campaign. It's all about taking action for the future of our water. And here's some of the campaign creative, just to give you a sample of what the public will be seeing at the top of this marketing funnel. So some key messaging is all about tomorrow's water needs are a heavy priority. Some key points, and then we're directing people to learn more at watersmartosoyoos.ca. So that's the URL that we've reserved for this campaign, where we will be placing the website. Here's an example of the print material that we will be going out to citizens and residents of Osoyoos, with some key information about the challenges and the initiatives. What is happening? What is our current state? What steps are we taking to address that? As you can see, it's got a lot of detail in there, a lot of information. We're giving people hard numbers and really making sure that they're up to speed on exactly what we're trying to accomplish here. So that is the campaign, obviously quickly. And that's what we're trying to achieve. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Thank you very much, Tim. That's quite helpful, and I like the little campaign slogan, Water Smart Osoyoos. That's a positive message, I think. And we haven't heard a lot of positive today, so we need something a little bit to boost us up a bit. So I do certainly appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So is that campaign started or about to start?
Our current status is on standby. We're on standby regular law. Pardon me?
Are we looking for money to do the campaign? Or
For the sugar council being, he's just waiting on the goal for me. That is it.
So it's already in the budget to see.
Didn't we put this on hold to some extent because we weren't sure whether the money for the meters was going to show up?
Why is it on standby then? I guess that's is that the question?
So, sorry, Your Worship, originally they were going to start the campaign last Monday. We wanted to make council aware of the campaign prior to us putting it down to the public.
Oh, I see. Oh,
So hence why the pause button was initiated, and I'm hoping within the next couple of days that this campaign will be rolled out to the community.
So you don't need a motion now to go ahead with it. It's okay, right? It's in the budget. You're gonna go ahead. That's great.
That's correct.
well,
Just some
something else.
comments. I saw on the bottom of some of your material mail out. I think that's going to be our most, if you do every post office stall or Old Town or whatever, that's going to be your most productive area. I believe there's 25–30% of the people that don't tie into a computer in this area. They're older and they don't even go into our town e-news when I told them to go check the e-news to see what's going on with the water. They can't be bothered or they whatever. And so the mail out's good. The e-news stuff, I don't think you're gonna get the response of it you hope for. I hope you do, but I think it's gonna be a cautionary thing. And I myself have been on Castanet about 3 times in the last 2 years. So I don't, so, and then we don't have digital in the arena.
So
You mentioned putting digital stuff in the arena, we don't have it. Neither, it's not the Sonora Center either.
The arena has a TV.
Yeah, there's new.
Oh, just a little TV and,
They have the TV where like shows the dressing rooms and that. I think that's when they're gonna put it on.
okay.
and I do think that putting it on the radio is a good thing. Coffee with Brock in the morning, he gets a lot
Yeah, I
of
got no
people
problem
who are
with
on that one.
Yeah.
And I definitely like what Global TV has done. Travis Lowe with Okanagan Basin Water Board. Those I think are really good. So I think that's a good way to capture a lot of people as well. Yeah, no, yeah, I
Wonderful,
get
where
it.
is that?
We need lots of different ways, because everybody has a different way of getting their information, so we need it out there in plenty of ways, yeah. Thank you.
So I just have a question with the election coming up. And we're gonna throw this out there a couple weeks before the election. I don't know if that's such a good thing. I don't know. Because there could be a new council. And then we're gonna commit to all this money. I might not even hear it. I don't know.
We're just talking about what was the budget for the campaign, so we're discussing. I mean, we're discussing everything, but
Yeah.
Tim's campaign.
So that was included within the water metering implementation plan. The narrative is now switched a bit to include all our capital in regards to water.
So Tim's getting 1,000,000 and 13's going to water meters.
Ron, did you have something you wanted to ask?
So, through your worship, like there has been mention of this for the past decade, so there's like, I mean, I think this is really packaged together, much more succinctly and, maybe some of the new information is the amount of demand, that's been escalating over the last couple of years, but as far as, the capital project, as far as the water treatment plant, et cetera, there has been some placeholders within the budgets in the past. We have received several requests from the media and as well as some from the customers asking about, the groundwater, et cetera. And, so I think what this does is basically puts all the information together and so just being transparent. But a lot of it has been there before, but again, I gotta go back to this number of inquiries we're getting from the media. And kind of holding off on a lot of the information, and I think this information is gonna be coming out. People are interested, it's something that it's partially known out there anyways. So I know maybe it appears a little bad timing, but from I guess a positive perspective, there has been some funding within the budgets in the past. Administration and council has been proactive in the past as far as seeking grants. Just only 2 weeks ago, council took a very active role in talking to ministries on trying to get some funding to assist with this manganese problem and our water problem. So I think there's been a lot of positive things that council has been doing. Hit some roadblocks. But I think the public needs to know both that we've got this issue, need to deal with it soon. And council has been doing some things behind the scenes to try to get some funding to be able to support this longer term plan.
Okay.
So I think it's been there in pieces, it hasn't been all together. And so I think this will help just communicate the entire message to the residents. But again, it's been out there, the media has been contacting us, and it's been somewhat reserved in what we've been saying. I think now this just puts it all together and it's easier, it's an easy song sheet message.
Okay, thank you.
I think the councils and whatnot that are going to be out there putting names for it and whatnot should be able to sit there and say, you can't put this package together in a month. Or 2 weeks or a month or whatever. This is a long-term uphill road to get where we're at today.
But I totally agree that the message that comes out from Habit is going to be the same message every time, and it'll be consistent and will help not only us understand it better, but hopefully the public understand it. So we have to put it that way at this point, for sure.
Your worship, I think one of the other things I just received an email this morning, somebody questioning the water metering program. And why are we investing money in the water metering program when we use things with the water? And so just some doubt out there as far as what needs to be done and to address this holistically. So I think turn back the clock, maybe things could have been done a little bit differently, maybe more communication earlier, et cetera, or more succinct, but there's a lot of questions out there. This will package it together, but nothing really to hide. There's been some
I agree. I think it will be, I think it's a positive message and it's there and it probably will answer questions. Unfortunately, people hear one thing and they don't hear the whole thing and then it gets passed on to somebody else and it's confusing. So I hope that this is going to, have the result that we want. But you're right, I feel exactly the same way. So I'm concerned as well.
I have no problem sending it out. I think it's great that we're being proactive.
Yeah.
Letting the public know transparency. That's what they keep asking about. They think we're hiding stuff. So I'm all for you sending it out. It won't start for a few days. We got the campaign tonight. It won't affect us.
So get him on it right now.
Very good, Tim, you got your marching orders.
Got it.
So, last but not least, maybe if you could come up and
Judy,
give us some background on
you've
that.
been listening to all of this. Give us a perspective from Interior Health. Thank you.
Counselors. I want to go back a few steps and talk about manganese in particular. Prior to 2019, we were aware of issues with manganese in drinking water systems, but it was more related to the aesthetic component. In the research that Health Canada does for any of their maximum acceptable concentrations for chemicals in our drinking water, they continually are researching, following up, and revising the maximum acceptable concentrations for the different chemicals. Recently, we saw one for lead, we've seen one for arsenic change over the years. In 2019, after 3 years of consultation, research, and feedback from the drinking water community, they updated it from an aesthetic objective to a health-based objective. So that's why in 2019, we have the maximum acceptable concentration for manganese in drinking water. And it is related to the impact, the intellectual impairment that can happen with school-age children exposed to higher levels of manganese in drinking water. So that's why when this research became available and Health Canada researched into this, they changed it from an aesthetic objective where, people didn't like it in their drinking water to a health-based objective, where now those with high levels of manganese in their drinking water need appropriate treatment. So with all of my groundwater systems, I have a number up to Princeton and up just by Lake Country. All of the water suppliers were looking at the levels of manganese in each of their individual wells. And we looked at things like, is it seasonal? Does it change over time? For some of those water systems, they have a number of wells that do not exceed the maximum acceptable concentration versus, unfortunately for Osoyoos, they have the majority that does. When you have wells that don't, you have different options. So if you had wells that, if you 4 of your 5 wells do not have levels higher than the maximum acceptable concentration, you can blend. You can bring that concentration down by blending, by using that one well less than the other 4, which is what one of the communities does. They bring that online in the summer when they need it for irrigation, but they don't use it throughout the year when they don't need to, unless there's an emergency, in which case they can bring that back online, knowing very well that the levels of manganese are higher, but that's a trade-off you make at that point in time. So I've worked with each of the communities on really identifying how much manganese is in your wells, in each individual well, not combined, in each individual well, and then also looking at how much is coming out into your distribution system into the tap. So gathering that information, having that helps the water supplier in the long run, because now you have this information over the last couple of years. Now you have to make a decision about what to do with it. Do you want to drill a new well and have the ability to drill a new well into an aquifer that doesn't have high level contaminants. So for some of my water systems, that has been an option. For others, what they found is that that isn't an option, and what they need to do is put treatment on. And again, it's gonna be different by the ability, and what's in the groundwater in your area. It's also important to consider the ongoing operation and maintenance. You guys discussed the option of using a soil slate. When Jared first came here, he brought that up to me. He said, you know, we should look at this again. And what, you know, maybe we can. And I'm kind of knowing what a soil slate water quality is like and what some of the challenges are. I said, you know, yeah, that's something to explore, but there are definite challenges with using a soil slate. There will always be the same, if not challenges becoming more and more complex with using a soil slate. So if you can deal with the groundwater, that's great. And maybe in the meantime, some of those challenges with the soil slate, the water treatment technology will improve 40 years from now, where you could treat it and it wouldn't be as costly as what it is right now to treat it for your community. There's been other changes in your community over this time. The twinning of system 8 and 9 was a big change. So you have more domestic connections on your wells. With climate change, we have seen in 2020, 2021, and 2022, an increased demand in summer peak demand of water systems. It was worse in 2021 from my perspective, from what I was hearing from water suppliers, from the concern in general. But with the information that's being collected here in the soils, it seems like that trend is going up. That is part of the reason why the information is collected, and then why they review it and look into it even further. So that, okay, so is that a leak situation, or is this a situation where people use more water than maybe they need to in the community? Without meters, you don't know how much people are using on an individual basis. We can't compare you to the communities that are metered, where we can have a better estimate of the per capita use of water. Right now, basically, we can take all the waters being used and divide it by your population and say it's, you know, this amount divided by that, and that's the number of liters per person per day. But that won't be accurate. You have tourists, you have seasonal variations. So without the metering, you don't have that information to help support personal decisions, homeowners' decisions, and to see if your water conservation initiatives are actually working. There was a report, I believe it was 2012, for Soyuz with the demand projections in it, and 25% of the demand was going to be fulfilled by water conservation efforts. When I look at that, 10 years later, the demand has gone up. Your population has gone up, not as much as the demand has gone up. So you're not achieving that. With the efforts over the last 10 years, you're not achieving the conservation you thought you would, and you need some tools to help people decide or actually understand how much water they are using and how they can reduce their use. With regards to the unidirectional flushing program, that's another item I work with all water systems. Those with high hardness, with high calcium, with manganese or iron in their water, they all have large deposits of these materials in the distribution system. in the reservoirs. And if that is not removed, then when the treatment comes in and your water's treated so it's lower in manganese, as it goes through those lines, as it sits in the reservoirs, maybe not in the summer, it doesn't sit in those reservoirs for long, but in the winter it does, or in the distribution lines or the dead ends, then that resolubilizes and goes back into your drinking water. So you are not going to get those reductions because you have another source. You have the manganese that's been coating these lines over time. Earlier on in my career, I worked with a community that made the decision to go from well water to surface water because the community did not want the iron and manganese in their drinking water. And they made that decision. They picked their lines, which is a foam unit that's propelled through the lines, and it really helps to remove everything that's been deposited on there, and it comes out with fire hydrants or the blow offs. And they had photographs of the horrible water quality, and they did this the first year, the second year, and then by the third year they realized they don't need to do it every year anymore. This is when they went on their surface water source. So they have their new water source, the new water treatment, and they needed to and did remove the deposits of iron and manganese from their distribution lines so that that wasn't contributing to them. With when water suppliers have a flushing program rather than a unidirectional flushing program, a flushing program is just, you know, changing over your water. It's actually not really resolving the problem. So it is challenging. It does take manpower. And it takes more manpower up front for the first few times until some of those issues that Jared mentioned are resolved or, you know, are observed. Some of the valves, if you haven't used them, they aren't going to work. And you'll need to have people ready to do the repairs. You'll need to have supplies on hand. You may need to stop and then restart the program. But really, I think that Jared and Mike can develop a program and start with pilots, start with areas, and then bring that out to the whole distribution system. So that would be their job, part of the reason why you're hiring them for their expertise. But they also need the manpower, the dedicated manpower over that period of time to do that. And there's a lot of water systems. They flush both in the spring and fall if they have poor water quality. The ones that have better water quality are able to utilize their unidirectional flushing program once a year. It takes less manpower. Less water is wasted. But they are able to do that because they have better water quality going in there. And I think that a lot of the times that people don't understand that this maintenance needs to be done over time. Like with the reservoirs, the longer you leave them, the more the deposits. And when I heard Mike speak today, the question that came up in my head was with the high demands that we've had with the turning on all your wells and the huge demand was some of that manganese that was deposited into your reservoir also being released into your distribution system if those levels were fluctuating, particularly after the event where the flushing was happening and that on and off disturbed the lines, but also used a lot of water in a short period of time. So these are all things that water suppliers, communities need to look at, and it's over time. There isn't a quick fix to any of this, but there is benefits in having a solid long-term plan for your community. How are you going to move forward? We have a lot of information. We have that information from what was looked at, what was planned for, what didn't happen in the last 10, 15 years. And I appreciate that the focus was elsewhere during that time, But now, moving forward for your community, what are the next steps you're gonna take in order to improve the system so that people can be turning on that tap and wanting to drink the water? I can't make you do things that make people want to drink the water, but I can, in the conditions on permit letter, put in items that are related to health benefits. And when I left the Lower Mainland 25 years ago now, people in Vancouver were screaming about the rate increases because their rates went up from $235 a year to $405 a year, and they were gonna get full treatment. But now when I go back, people are bragging. They love their water there, and they turn on the tap and they drink it. When I was there, I was right near the water treatment plant. I had my Brita water filtered and always used it because, yes, I did get a high dose of the chlorinated water, but I understood that that dose was needed so that other people could have safe drinking water further along the path. And now when I go down there, you can drink water anywhere, and you don't notice that chlorine taste because it's dosed appropriate to the treatment. Questions?
Thank you very much, for, giving us that information. It's always helpful to have Interior Health here, because what we hear is, well, Interior Health says we have to do this, so to have it explained is very helpful. Any questions from anybody?
Oh, Brian.
Go ahead, Councillor Harvey.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, this whole discussion generates a lot of thoughts. I mean, we've talked about this in our 4-year term many times. The notion of a $20 million surface water treatment plant, which is now a $40 million project, I think, according to Steve's slides. But it just troubles me. One of our colleagues has railed about this many times, but the downloading. So a joint provincial federal commission decides that manganese is a problem, but there's zero funding for the municipality. The municipality has to deal with it. The municipality has to come up with the $20 million to fund it. It disgusts me. So just, okay, so there's that point. Consumption, yes, I support the notion of water metering, but I don't believe the community will. And so I think the planning going forward has to be on the assumption there will be no water metering. But who knows? We'll see. The future council will see. Future council will deal with all of these matters. Why this is being brought to the last meeting or the penultimate meeting of this council is curious, but anyway. So I'm frustrated because we've been looking at this for 4 years since I've been on council, and Myers and the rest of you have been on for longer. And we've gone nowhere with it. And it's frustrating, a new well, surface water, this, that, and all of a sudden, on the last meeting of this council, we're being presented with this. Frustrating. Thank you.
Certainly get it. The one thing I can say is that we have applied for several grants because we knew that we couldn't do it on our own. And that was one of the reasons that we went to at UBCM, and we had a meeting with the municipal service, people, and we said, we are frustrated and we need help and we want to know where to go next. And they said, please phone and we'll help you go through the grant process and see what we can do. Whether that was an easy out on their part, we don't know. But yes, you're right. It is frustrating, very frustrating. Totally. Anybody else?
Thank you very much for your update.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, crazy. However, we are forced to deal with all of these things and we will, but of course. We need help from our staff who are, the people that are going to come and say. Not, we need this much money, but this is how we can help you get it, because. Our job is to oversee this and to make good policy. And we have to rely on our staff and the trained people that understand these situations to help us understand. So is there anything else that we need to talk about today? Well, thank all of you for your participation and for providing this information to us. We'll have to try and sort through some of it and decide how we're going to proceed tonight. Okay, thank you all very much, and I am going to go to, I need a motion, please, to move to the in-camera section of this meeting that pursuant to section 91C of the community charter. Council meeting be closed to the public as the subject matter relates to labor relations or other employee relations. Thank you. That is seconded, Councillor Ben.